let's go. 2 cup, please.
I've been a chef for over 50 years.
Service.
And I've come to realise that the food we eat tells a story about who we are. So I'm on a mission to find out what we all like to eat today.
Oh, that is good.
From our traditional dishes...
Long live the Yorkshire pudding.
...to those we've made our own.
I mean, that is multifaceted Britain on one page.
I'll meet producers...
There you see a robot. It's picking them.
I find a lot of craft beers too hoppy. Don't know why, but it tastes all right.
Some of our best chefs...
We're picking scurvy grass.
Crikey.
Pretty punchy.
...plus those keeping traditions alive.
We've just got to finish. I have no hope.
I'll see how food brings us together.
Dig in.
Lovely, that sort of hot garlic. Fabuloso.
And from my home in Padstow, I'll bring you great dishes of my own.
Love stuff like this.
So join me as I unearth the stories behind the food we all love to eat today. It's a mild summer's evening, and I've just arrived in the Cathedral Quarter of Belfast.
Now I've got a cousin called Kevin. He's sure to go to heaven.
Here stands St Anne's Cathedral, whose strikingly modern spire of hope celebrates the progress this city has made in the last few decades. The early 1960s, when the Beatles came to town, were relatively carefree days here in Belfast. Then, during the Troubles from the late 60s to the 90s, violence spilled onto the streets. But now, they're bustling again, with people enjoying themselves in busy bars and restaurants.
There's something of a food revolution happening here in Northern Ireland. Ever since the Good Friday Agreement, there's been a transformation with world-class restaurants and food producers popping up everywhere. I mean, 25 years ago, Belfast was no real destination, but now it's absolutely buzzing.
Down one of these back alleys, I know there's a mural of someone whose music I've long admired for its sheer originality, Van Morrison.
Hey, where did we go?
Who's from Belfast and wrote his first hits here in the swinging 60s.
Down in the hollow, playing a new game.
And there he is, a very young Van, probably even pre-Brown-Eyed Girl.
You, my brown-eyed girl.
I bought Brown-Eyed Girl in the 60s for my disco because it was just such a sort of fresh, lovely, lively song, but also it was clearly about somewhere, which is, of course, Belfast.
Hiding behind a rainbow's wall, slipping and sliding.
Belfast was the inspiration for so many of Van's songs. Even his food memories of the city came into some of them. A Sense of Wonder is one song which springs to mind.
I just remember the lines. Pasty suppers down at Davy's Chipper, gravy rings.
Wagon wheels, barn packs, snowballs.
Well, I've always wondered what gravy rings were, and I've discovered, I thought, how do you get rings of gravy? But they turn out, actually, to be little fried donuts. And in Belfast talk, the gravy is the frying oil, so that is a gravy ring.
I don't think it's an overstatement to say the food, drink, and indeed music of Belfast have played their part in pulling the people of this so recently divided city together. A century ago, Belfast, with its coastal location, was a city with a global outlook. It was famous for its shipbuilding industry. The Harland and Wolff shipyard, where the Titanic was built, was the greatest shipyard in the world. Today, that positive, outward-looking feeling has returned. And Belfast, like most major UK cities, is home to people from all over the world. and happily for me, their cuisines. I've heard that amongst the shipping containers in the city's trade market, there's an amazing Filipino food stall, and I'm particularly keen to try it. It's run by Elaine, originally from the Philippines, via Canada, who arrived here in Belfast 5 years ago.
Very nice to
Hi,
meet
Rick.
you.
Nice to meet you.
Do you know, I've never ever tried Filipino food before.
not?
I've been all over the place, but never been there. So what are you cooking there?
We're cooking adobo today. Adobo means to cook in vinegar. So it's soy sauce and cane vinegar, garlic and bay leaves. Vinegar is very prevalent in a lot of Filipino
Yeah.
dishes. The whole point is to cut through like the heaviness of meat.
So what are we going to have for lunch today then?
So we are going to make you a very traditional Filipino Kamayan.
Kamayan.
Yeah, so translates to eat with your hands. So essentially,
With hands.
we can eat with our hands today. It's a very communal way of eating in the Philippines. It really just brings like all the communities together, all our families, and just sit at the table and just talk. You know, just
Great.
talk
I-
and converse.
I
It's
always
really
think
nice.
eating together is probably the best things we do in life, really.
Elaine tells me she serves a Kamayan every week, and that it's been a great way for her to make friends here in Belfast.
Looks very appetizing.
I hope you're hungry. I think I'm overcooked.
I suppose a Kamayan is the Filipino equivalent of a Sunday roast, a chance for everyone to get together over some traditional and well-loved food.
Welcome to our little Kamayan feast, you guys. So we have pork belly adobo, which is the national dish of the Philippines. We have our Kubo barbecue. It's basted in pineapple banana ketchup. Filipino beef spring rolls or lumpia. We have Filipino fried chicken, mangoes, and your garlic rice, and all the fun stuff.
Great.
Dig in! So there's a little technique about
show
eating
me.
your hands. So it's called pick, pack, push. So essentially, you want to take a bit of what you're eating. So you take like your meat,
Yeah.
you take a bit of the rice. So you pack it in your hands in like a little pile, and then you pack that pile together.
Not
Pick-
quite as efficiently as
pack
you,
it.
but I'm doing my best.
Yes, you're doing great. And then take your thumb and you push it into your mouth.
Okay.
So that's,
Oh, really good. Pick, pack, push. This adobo's really nice. I just want to try this.
just break it right in half.
So this is beef. Like,
It's beef, yeah. So it's brisket. We braise it
I love
in
brisket. That's so good.
cane vinegar, soy sauce,
Yeah.
cloves and star anise.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
I'm really loving this. It's this whole sweetness, the sourness of it.
It's just a lot going on, isn't it? Yeah.
Is everybody enjoying it? Yeah. Belfast people have obviously taken to something, you know, there's a lot of you around the table.
Yeah, it's been great. It's a very niche and very new cuisine to the city, but we do find that people are curious about it.
Well,
and
also, and this is for me a very happy place to be, you know,
Yeah.
because you suddenly realise that things aren't about sort of meat and two veg or fish and chips. Things are about sitting down, eating communally with you.
yeah, it's the
so-
experience of it. Right?
Absolutely.
It's just a really fun way of coming together around food.
Thank you very much.
No,
indeed.
thank you. Thank you for joining us. Oh, I'm so excited for you guys to be part of the cleanup.
Well, that was just wonderful. I mean, Sunday lunch, Filipino style. And I think it's particularly exciting to find it here in Belfast. I mean, I think one of the things about Belfast, because of the Troubles, everything was sort of atrophied for so long. And then as soon as the peace happened, everything's just taking off all around. And this is absolutely typical of what I'm finding in this wonderful city.
In the UK, more than most countries, I'd argue, we've always welcomed new foods into our cuisine. And in that spirit, I'm making my first ever attempt at Filipino food. Pork belly adobo with jasmine rice and mango achara on the side.
So this is the main part of the dish. I'm just cutting this pork belly up into sort of bite-sized pieces, I suppose you could call it.
As I've discovered, Filipino food is packed meat with strong flavours.
To get the pork belly browning nicely.
And this, the national dish, is no exception. After browning the meat, add an onion and 9 cloves of crushed garlic.
Smelling wonderful. I mean, you can't go wrong when you've got such incredibly positive flavours.
In goes that key Filipino ingredient, cane vinegar, plus soy sauce, fish sauce, brown sugar, bay leaves and black pepper.
So I'm just going to leave that now for half an hour to cook.
I'm going to serve my adobo with a mango pickle called achara. I actually made it earlier because the flavour needs time to develop. So here's what I did. I put a couple of sliced unripe mangoes into a jar with 2 tablespoons of raisins. Over a medium heat, I mixed cane vinegar with bay leaves, cloves, peppercorns, garlic, sugar and salt. When the sugar had dissolved, I poured the warm mixture over the mangoes, then put it to one side for a couple of hours. My pork belly has been simmering away for 30 minutes. The liquid has reduced right down and it's ready to serve. Jasmine rice is the perfect accompaniment, along with, of course, my mango achara.
So here we jolly well go. It is so intense. The belly pork is beautiful, really tender. And as for this pickled mango, it's just amazingly strong, but in a totally delightful way. You'd have to say that Filipino cooking was a sort of study in vinegar. Personally, I love vinegar. I can't have enough of it. I've never been to the Philippines. I must go.
I've headed out of Belfast today and into farming country because what underpins the flourishing food scene here in Northern Ireland is fantastic produce. This is the Glen estate, which has been owned by the Earls of Antrim for the last 400 years. It's home to a herd of beef cattle whose meat has won a host of foodie prizes.
I've always thought that beef from Ireland is really quite special. And I think if you're doing something that little bit extra with cattle here, you're onto a real winner.
Estate manager Adrian tells me that the secret of their success here is the breed.
I love the way they're following us.
These cattle are not the leaner continental kind farmed across much of the UK these days. They're a native breed called Shorthorns.
It's an old traditional breed of cow that was designed for its meat-eating qualities because of the high fat content over its back and the marbling through the meat.
I mean, a fatty beast, then?
Yeah, it's a fatty beef. Aye, that's it. So you need that fat there to get the flavour, you see. It's going to be
very friendly.
Oh, well, yeah, and that's one of the eating characteristics as well. Because,
really?
Yeah, they're very quiet and timid. So, you know, there's no adrenaline pushing through their system. It's a combination of things, and the fact that they're very quiet helps the meat as well. So
that's so interesting. I have to say, Adrian, I'm personally interested in Shorthorns because I was born and brought up on a farm, and we had Shorthorns. Do you remember them as being, like, rather friendly?
They're a pleasure to work with.
Yeah.
And the life of the farmer can be extended by using Shorthorns as well. You know, the stress levels are a lot lower than they used to be. If you walk down to a field of continental cattle, you know, they just rushed out the other side. Now, as you can see today, when you come into a field of Shorthorns, they come and say hello and lick your trouter legs. So
they're calming me down as well, actually.
Yeah, no, they've got that effect.
There's another key factor that turns the meat from Adrian's herd into the special end product that's served in some top UK restaurants, and that's the way it's butchered and aged.
Hello, Peter.
Oh,
nice to,
yeah.
Very good to see you.
Great to see you again. Come on in.
Pete Hannon is an old friend of mine who spent a decade perfecting his process for dry aging the beef he gets from Glen and other carefully selected producers.
This here is our reception area. The beef all arrives here and sits here for a week.
So this is the first part.
This here was slaughtered this week. Look at the fat on it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you know an animal like that has had a happy life.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get fat unless you're happy.
But I mean, a lot of people would look at that and say it's far too fatty, wouldn't they?
No, fat is flavour.
Yeah.
You have to have it there. If you don't want to eat it all, and my cardiologist would suggest that I'd eat no more than 75% of it, but like, if you don't want to eat it all, fine.
Yeah.
But it has to be there for us to give you what's here.
Pete's aging process lasts about 40 days. The idea is to extract the meat's moisture and concentrate its flavour, much as you're doing when you reduce a sauce or gravy. What Pete doesn't want is anything like mould creeping in, which would make the meat taste gamey. So the conditions in these rooms are tightly controlled.
Oh, fabulous.
This is the final stage, Rick.
Well, this is special. Look at that. I mean, that is true aging, but
It's a beautiful thing, isn't
it?
At the last stage of the process, the meat is allowed to settle next to this amazing 12-foot wall of Himalayan rock salt.
What I'm most interested in is what's behind you.
That's a brick of salt, Rick.
So this is all the way from Pakistan, is it?
Pakistan, Mike. And there's 16.5 ton of it on this wall.
Really?
It's the purest salt known to man. We don't know if any other salt would perform what it is we do. Because when we found one that did, we didn't go looking for a second one. We just stuck with this here.
So just explain exactly what it does do.
What the salt allows us to do is to create the perfect environment in which to mature meat. So we have the right level of bacteria and the type of bacteria that we require. But it's one player in a 6-member team. All of the other elements that bring our temperature, humidity, light, airspeed, all those things that are involved, we couldn't do it without those. But we most certainly couldn't do it without the salt.
Yeah.
We have it now almost like a jet on autopilot.
Yeah.
Everything is balanced, everything is controlled, everything is measured.
I just love the way the Irish have this way of explaining things in a charming way, like a jet on autopilot. It's
Well,
just
we're from a long line of storytellers.
Well, I know. It's called a blarney, I suppose.
But you're not bad at it yourself.
Back in Padstow, I have some well-aged chuck steak from Pete, and I'm making an iconic Irish dish, steak and Guinness pie.
Using a whole pint of Guinness, why not? It'll have a nice bitter back taste, but it'll be very satisfying. So, first of all, I'm going to put some flour in the beef. Turning that over a little bit.
I'm going to fry my beef in lard instead of oil or butter.
For those who do not know what lard is, it's pig fat.
And it really adds flavour.
You'll note that I'm scraping the bottom all the time because I'm using a pan with no non-stick surface, so the flour's catching a bit on the bottom. But I like that because it's caramelising as it catches. All that will actually turn into yumminess in the final sauce.
Into the pan go your chopped onions, celery and carrot.
Quite sort of roughly chopped up because sometimes I want like finely chopped, neat and tidy things. Other times I want a bit of ruggedness, you know? Horses for courses, I say.
Then a dollop of tomato puree, a dash of soy sauce, some sugar and a generous amount of beef stock.
And now for the star ingredient, a whole pint of Guinness.
Guinness was first brewed in the 1750s in Dublin and is used to add an earthy tone to loads of Irish dishes. It goes particularly well with oysters. To your pie mix, add salt and pepper, thyme, bay leaves, and your mushrooms.
I'm going to leave that to simmer away gently for about an hour.
Now, to make a melt-in-your-mouth short crust pastry, it's crucial your lard and butter are cold. That way they'll stay as solid little lumps in the dough, and that's what makes it crumbly.
And I'm just going to whiz this till I've got a sort of granular texture. Do you know what? These processes are so safe now that it's almost impossible to work out where the safety catch is. It's this. For this cooking lark, it's really hard to think and do cooking at the same time and speak. I've been doing it getting on 30 years and I'm still no good at it. Best to use the pulse on this because you don't want to over-process the fats in there.
As soon as the mixture resembles breadcrumbs, add a couple of spoons of cold water, then one last quick blitz. To make sure those breadcrumb-sized lumps of fat stay solid until cooking, pop the dough into the fridge before you work on it anymore. And back to the beef, which is looking delish.
I've taken the trouble just to take it off the heat for some time so that it's cooled down nicely, because it's much easier to put the pie crust on the top if the mixture's cool. And then I just happen to have kept one of my mother's little pie razors, and that's just keep the crust up in the middle.
Once cooled, roll out the pastry on a floured surface.
I have to say, me and pastry don't get on particularly well. Excuse me, just doing a few patch-ups.
But another little tip I can give you is that brushing the edge of your dish with egg will make the pastry stick rather than shrinking off the side as it cooks.
Bit of egg wash, and then just a little hole in the pastry where that little shape is, just to let the steam get out.
Give it about half an hour in a hot oven, and after all that effort, your pastry should be lovely and crumbly, or short.
I mean, I'm very pleased to report that my short crust pastry looks very short indeed. And it is. And what I'm really liking is the darkness of it and the darkness of the flavour. There's so much flavour in there. If you wanted to describe Ireland on a plate, this would be it, particularly with that stout. I mean, it's simple, wholesome. What more can you say? Beautiful.
It seems to me that in Northern Ireland today, there's an energy and excitement around food, whether traditional or new. My last stop on this trip is one I've been really looking forward to, because A, it's to do with my favourite food, and B, is to see something intriguing and original being done with it.
Well, for me, as a lover of fish, this is a most interesting trip I'm going to make. It's a young couple, started as fishmongers, and now they've got a restaurant, but they've stuck to their ethos, which is nose-to-tail eating. Well, I know nose-to-tail eating of pigs, of course, but fish? Well, let's see.
Tucked just behind the Atlantic coast on the River Bann estuary is Lear.
Hello.
A much-loved fish restaurant run by Rebecca and Stevie McCarry, who believe not just in using every part of the fish, but also in using types of fish that other people wouldn't. To show me their zero-waste style cookery, Stevie's going to make smoked dogfish carbonara.
It's just basically an idea we came up with to use a really underutilised fish. But we've found a way to hopefully make it as tasty as possible.
Don't people find dogfish a bit hard to take? It used to be called rock salmon in fish and chip shops, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it, yeah. It's had a couple of names.
Dogfish are a common species found in UK waters. Now, I'm fond of dogfish, but many don't like it, and fishermen find them very difficult to sell. But Stevie snaps it up and smokes the belly of the fish to create what he calls dogfish bacon.
At first we thought it would be a hard sell, but I think the idea of smoking it and the texture that comes across through the lardons, it's not dissimilar to guanciale or something that you would get in a traditional carbonara. So
guanciale, pig's cheek.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Stevie makes his carbonara by finely slicing some shallots and some chives.
I couldn't help noticing the tattoos on your fingers. I'm not a great fan of tattoos, but I love these.
My mum had the same reaction. I always say to people, I spend every day with my hands covered in fish. We might as well have fish in our hands all the time.
That's what I call dedication to the job. Stevie's making fresh linguine as the basis for his dish. The whole thing is just a brilliant idea, I think. putting a challenging ingredient like dogfish into something very familiar, like carbonara, makes it so much more approachable. Question is, how far is Stevie prepared to go with all this?
I was just thinking, what about fish chitlings then, if we're talking nose to tail?
I'm talking about intestines, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, we're early days for that stuff, but I mean, I love the idea of a fish offal or something like that there as well, yeah.
For the carbonara sauce, Stevie combines egg yolks and pecorino cheese. Then fries shallots and the dogfish bacon, which he'll cook until the fish fat melts into oil. Just before the pasta's ready, he pops in some peas. Then it's time to put it all together, making sure everything gets coated in the smoked fish oil. Then it's added to the eggs and pecorino. If you wanted to make this fishy carbonara at home, Stevie suggests replacing the dogfish with cold smoked oily fish like mackerel or salmon.
Dig in.
That's lovely. The dogfish bacon, nice smoky, meaty sort of flavour. It's a really successful dish, and I mean also that you're using up fish that people don't generally think as nice, right? It's the way forward, it really is. It's really important, I think.
Genuinely, the uglier the fish, the tastier the dish.
Yeah.
With getting people out of their comfort zone and making fish more approachable, we try and do it in a totally different range of ways. So we'll put it through street food, we'll put it in more refined concepts, more experimental kind of ways.
But we wanted to take the gentrification out of the fish. You know, you take a whole lobster, split it in half and serve it in a restaurant, it's going to be a lot of money. But I mean, if we can put it through a pasta or make it into a lobster roll, anyone can have it.
You're so hungry to prove that you can sell fish to people that don't necessarily like fish.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
It's nerve-wracking too, I think, yeah.
I don't think anyone else will do it, so somebody has to.
Yeah, that's it. I think we're mad enough.
Cheers. I must say, you've really made me feel that the future of hospitality in this country is in good hands.
Thank you.
As I leave Northern Ireland, I'm filled with admiration for the fantastic produce here and the innovative food scene in this very special part of the UK. Next time, I'm in Manchester.
You've got tripe there too.
Lancashire calamari.
Lancashire calamari.
It is.
Beetles, kinks, 10cc. Life is a minestrone. Manchester's arriving. What would you say about?
Well, it does feel like a new era is on the horizon.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.